Dear guests, our next session is creating a regenerative economy for well-being. Please welcome the session chair, Stewart Wallis, together with Kristín Vala Ragnarsdóttir and Ásgeir Brynjar Torfason.
Hello, I'm Stewart Wallis from the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, and you've heard lots of acronyms today. We're the sort of civil society organisation really trying to get a movement and new narratives about the wellbeing economy. Now, I promise you this session, it's the penultimate one. It'll be short. I was going to say it would be short and sweet, but that sounds a bit gooey. I think short and sharp, we'll go for short and sharp, okay? Now, we've talked a few times today about system change, and many of the things we've been talking about today, in fact, all of them, are necessary, but they're not necessarily sufficient to change the system. And all the evidence on system change says that in addition, three things are needed. First of all, as we've been hearing, new narratives about who we are as humans, how we fit with our other fellow humans, and how we fit with nature and being part of nature. New narratives. The second is radical collaboration, creation of new power, because politicians can't do anything unless enough people are saying, we want something different. So it comes back to us. And so that radical collaboration has to be, as we've been hearing, across all sectors. It's intersectoral. It has to be not just bottom up, it has to be that. It has to be top down and bottom up and in between. And it has to be across geographies. So we need to create new power. And almost any system that's really changed, anti-slavery or anything like that, has depended on those two things, new stories and new power, a movement, lots of movement. Now, the Wellbeing Economy Alliance was set up to help catalyze that movement, and we're just one factor within it. But what we're going to talk about today is the third thing, because that power and those narratives also can't just be the general. They have to focus in on, and they have to focus on what things are going to most change the system. What are the leverage points? And we've got two brilliant people today, who I'm going to bring on now, who've just written a book together. And they're two brilliant Icelanders, I'm delighted to say. And Vala is a geology professor who became a world expert in sustainability. And Ásgeir started as a philosopher, then got into property, then became an economist, and became an expert on how banks really make money. So that could be a whole other tale. We're not till it today, promise you. And then he is the editor-in-chief of a weekly economics journal here in Iceland. But those two have written an incredibly exciting book. We're not going to go through all of it. We haven't got time. We'll say a bit about the book at the end. But I'm not going to challenge each of them. In this short time we've got, is each of them I'm going to ask to say three things that could make the most change in shifting the system. And over to you, Vala.
Thank you. As you heard, I'm a geologist. So what on earth is a geologist doing claiming to know anything about the economy? Well, when I moved to Iceland in 2008, straight into the economic crash, I thought, I need to understand how the economy works. And as a science student, I didn't learn anything about economics. And I can tell you that economists learn nothing about geology. So I know how resources are formed and how much we have of them. But economists think that they are endless.
How do we get them?
And we can just substitute if anything runs out, which is wrong. So I thought, once I had put my head around it, I need to understand how the economy works and write a book about economics that other people can understand. Because when I started looking for one back in 2008, there wasn't one. And I am a systems thinker, so I could understand that the economy has gone crazy and we are ruining our planet. and the well-being of people and nature. So how do we shift a system? And it is Donella Meadows who wrote a lot about how to shift systems. And where we are tinkering are sort of at the edge of systems, maybe put some environmental taxes or maybe shift how much emissions people can have. That's all very high in the system, and it doesn't really make very much change. We need to go deep into the system and change the goal of the system. So what if the goal of the economic system was well-being of people and planet? Now that would be completely different. And because the economy is man-made, we can change the system. We just need to do it together. And we need to want to do it. So this is now a leverage point deep down in the system, mark number 3, if you can see the slide behind me. And this, changing the goal, can actually shift the paradigm. So it can lead to a paradigm shift where we are all concerned about the well-being of people and planet. The second point I'd like to make is that we need more of the feminine. Not necessarily women, but the values that are generally attributed to women. And there are women like Frances Moore-Lapé, who talked about reframing our thinking from scarcity mind to eco-mind, and Maya Göppel, the political economist in Germany, she talks about mind shift. And it was actually women that dared, in leadership in 4 countries, that dared to start thinking about the economy in a different way. So they joined up with the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, of which me and Stewart are both sort of co-founders of from early on. And Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland, Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, and Katrín Jakobsdóttir founded the Wellbeing Economy Governments. And later, Sanna Marin in Finland joined. So they were the first leaders to say, look guys, we're going to do things differently. Unfortunately, they are not in leadership anymore. So we went one step forward and now have gone backwards, but I'm convinced that if we nurture the feminine, we will get back on track.
Quick now, Vala, please.
And then the third point is we need to tackle the super rich.
Yeah.
They're the biggest polluters on the planet. They emit as much as 1 million times more as an average citizen. They do not want to pay taxes and shift where they're operating into tax havens. We need to close these tax havens. We need to break up companies that are too big. We need to analyze the disparity between the top 20% and the bottom 20% where wealth is concerned. And actually, when I was on a...
No.
Do I have time?
Yeah, no. Okay. No.
I'll leave that point.
I'm trying to keep there, sorry.
So the super rich, they erode democracies and they distort the media, and that is why we need to bring them under control. And we can do it, we just need the will.
Great, thank you. Ásgeir.
So, almost the last speaker. How many economists are in the room? Okay. Gladly surprised. A little bit more than I expected. I'm very happy that Vala brought me onto this book project some 3 years ago. And during that time, or maybe it's soon 4, the book is out later this month. We went from breaching the survival constraints, like I call them in economics terms, or the planetary boundaries that HADEA mentioned in the morning, from 6 out of 9 to 7 out of 9. So we are facing really serious survival issue. And the title of the book is Creating a Regenerative Economy for Wellbeing. Enough has been said about well-being here during all day today. And creating is not that we are creating a new economy from scratch. The economy is created every day of the year, and that's what actually the GDP is measuring. But we are going beyond the GDP now. Everyone agrees on that. But the regenerative concept from the title of the economy is bringing in the nature, which is regenerative in itself, but that does not mean that it is limitless with endless resources. That are the boundaries that we have been breaching. And the second point of that first point is that the economy is man-made, like Vala said, so that can be changed. But like Keynes said, if I may have one short quote, the ideas of economists and political philosophers, actually, he said, both when they are right and when they are wrong, are more powerful than is commonly understood. And then comes the passage about practical men who are the slaves of defunct economists. But then, if you read on, he goes on to talk about the madmen in authority. But we don't have time for that now. But it's very good always to reread Keynes. The second point is interdisciplinarity, or even after listening to Kumi, the intersectionality. This book is interdisciplinary. The ecological sustainability geologist and the philosophically educated economist joining forces. So the book can be for both environmental people, sustainability people, natural science people who need to understand the economical side, and also for the economic profession who needs to understand more of the natural side. And we don't only need interdisciplinary research like this book is presenting, but we need it also in the policy. When we are implementing policy, it has been mentioned here, breaking silos, it has to be cross-bridging. And there I want to mention, when I sat on the Fiscal Council, through 3 governments, the first one didn't mention well-being economy. The second one was that Vala mentioned from Katrín Jakobsdóttir, where they actually put up the measures into the statistical office. And they had 6 pages in the fiscal plan, 300-page document, 6 pages on well-being. The current government mentions the word 6 times throughout the 300-page document still, and it's not linked very much to what has been discussed here. My third point is we need to change the purpose of the corporations. You have all been told, even Milton Friedman was quoted here before, the purpose of the company would be to provide profit. And that's a man-made idea. It's not a natural law. And I actually interviewed a CEO of a company, and I had this idea from my education. Isn't the purpose of the company to maximize profit? No, he said. He was the CEO of the biggest bank in Sweden who never got support from the government. The purpose of me running the company is to make it survive. So that's very easy to see how it can be changed, but there are very strong forces who want to keep it as it has been, as we can see. Yeah. And that's creating the problem we are in.
Great, thank you. It's so quick, but thank you, Ásgeir. Yeah, Ásgeir. That book is available. You can get 50% off on the QR code, and you can also pick up the leaflets from the Wellbeing Economy Wellbeing Economy Alliance booth or stand. And just to say, Vala's family comes from a great line. Her son has just written a book which has been all over Times Square advertised in terms of Alzheimer's and what we can do about it and showing it's preventable. The same thing applies to the economy. We can change this system. It's in our hands. Let's do it. Thank you.